Hi, my name is Donna. I'm from the Potter's House, Los Angeles, and I'd like to share my testimony. I was born in Compton, California, and I was an abused, abandoned baby. My mother was raped by her dad, and therefore I was unwanted. She used to leave me alone in the house. She would tie me up to things and leave. And one day the house caught on fire, but that's the first time God saved me because some children heard me crying and they called 911, and I became a ward of the County of Los Angeles. They took me to a foster home and I stayed there for about 1 month. During that time, my name was Jane Doe because they had no idea who my family was. After that time, they found my family and they gave me to my grandmother, who said she wanted to be able to take care of me. After a few months, my grandmother called them back and said she would not be able to take care of me. And it is suspected that it might be because my grandmother was having trouble dealing with the fact that she and my mother both had a baby by the same man. They were both pregnant at the same time, and they had their babies 1 month apart. I have an older sister out there who's 1 month older than me. After 4 years of being a foster child, I was eligible for adoption because no one from my family was coming to visit me in foster care. So I was adopted by a woman and man that lived in South Central LA. Shortly after I was adopted, my new adoptive father left. He divorced my mother. He took everything. He took the car, all the credit cards, and all the money out of the accounts, and he left. My mother didn't work at the time because he had told her that he didn't want a woman who worked. He wanted his wife at home to take care of him and the family and the children, or me, basically. I was it. My mother was not able to have children because she got pregnant when she was a teenager back in the South, and she had to have her baby at a white hospital, and they mutilated her ovaries when she was there so that she would not be able to have any more babies. So I was it. I was the only child that she would ever have. Anyway, so I grew up a very sad little girl because I was depressed. I didn't understand why I didn't look like anybody. Everybody else had sisters and brothers. I didn't have any. And I didn't understand. I knew I was adopted. My mother never hid that from me. But I was very lonely. And I was so afraid of losing my mother that I used to pray to God, please let me die. If she dies, let me die too. Then I changed my prayer to let me die in a car accident with her so that we could die together. And then I decided that might hurt. So then I said, no, let us just both die in our sleep. But those are the kind of prayers that I would pray because I think I had abandonment issues at that time already. By the time I grew into being a teenager, I was like really angry. I was really angry. I didn't understand why I was here. I didn't understand why God would do this to me, and I was real angry with my birth mother for leaving me. Like, why would she have a baby and not want the baby? I didn't know anything about being abandoned or the product of a rape or anything like that yet, but I just knew that I felt empty inside. There was a time when I was about 16 that I took a lot of pills, but I think they were painkillers, so like aspirin, so they didn't hurt me. Just got sleepy. But at that time I was entertaining the thought of dying. Like maybe things would be better for me if I never existed, or if I don't exist, no one is going to really miss me except my mother. And that thought kept me around, my adoptive mother. I got more and more depressed, and my thoughts were darker and darker, and I was angrier and angrier, and there were times that I would take a razor blade and I would carve horrible names about myself on my body, but in places where no one could see them, like on my stomach or on my leg somewhere that would be covered with my pants. because that's how much I really hated myself. I really did. I really hated myself. I felt like a misfit, and I kept having these thoughts of, when my mother dies, now they switched to, I'm just going to kill myself. That's what I'm going to do. That was the answer. So that was through high school, and when I got out, I went to college, and when I got to college, I decided I was going to be a brand new person. I was going to reinvent myself. I was going to be a party girl. I was going to be like the girls that were most popular. And that's when I picked up drinking alcohol, whatever it was that would make me not feel the way I always felt, not feel different, not feel like some kind of alien or misfit or something, someone that didn't belong. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to have a lot of friends and be popular and see what that was like. That's what they showed on TV, right? So I would drink, and then I would go to every party. All my roommates were going to parties, and I really did build up my reputation. But of course everybody wants a drunk young party girl around, of course. So anyway, but meanwhile, by everybody's standards, I was successful because I had the right education. I was considered to be smart, and I was doing things with my life. I was successful. Nobody knew about how much pain I was in or how much I was drinking. Nobody knew. Maybe a friend or two, but they tell me to snap out of it. It's not that big a deal. When I would think inside myself about my family, like, I wish I knew who my family was, people would tell me that it wasn't important, that why am I still worried about that? After all, there was nothing wrong with me, so get over it. So anyway, meanwhile, my mother did raise me in church. She raised me in a Baptist church. But as I got older, I started to see so much hypocrisy. Everybody drank, everybody partied, and I found it really difficult to see any difference between what was going on in church and what was going on outside of church. And I'm like, why am I even coming here? I would just go because my mother went. It didn't do anything for me, and I definitely didn't feel Jesus there. So I partied my way through college, and after college, I eventually got a job, a good job. And the first thing I thought of when I got my health insurance was, hey, now you can go to a psychiatrist. That's got to be the answer. That's what everybody else does on TV. So you can go to a psychiatrist, and they can talk to you and help you work through all the depression and pain you're in all the time. There was a period of time that I was extremely suicidal, and I did cut myself on the wrists, and I bled profusely in a nightclub, mind you. They tried to call the paramedics, but I refused. I wouldn't let them do it. And I'm like, I will be fine, I'll be fine. I still have scars from that. So I wanted to see, like, what is wrong with me? Why am I still so deeply depressed? I have what people say you're supposed to have, So I went to the psychiatrist, and the first thing he did was prescribe antidepressants for me. I think I've had the top 6. I was on antidepressants for 12 years. And all they did pretty much, I wasn't as deeply depressed as I had been, but I wasn't happy. I thought they were going to make me happy. They made me flat, like my personality was just flat. It's supposed to just even you out so that you don't feel like you want to die anymore. So, okay, but there was no answer in that. So then they sent me to a psychologist. So I was seeing a psychiatrist and a psychologist. The psychologist would sit you on the couch, and then they talk about, like, what did your mother do to you, to make you depressed? There's probably some deep-seated issues there with your mother. Let's talk about that. And I'd walk out feeling super guilty, for saying things about my adoptive mother, who was the one who wanted me, who was the one who sacrificed for me. That wasn't the answer. Maybe feel a little bit better pushing guilt onto someone else. But ultimately, I was still deeply depressed. I wrote a paper in college about abortion in support of it because I figured that if abortion had been legal when I was born, then none of this, I wouldn't be suffering through any of this. And I just wouldn't exist, and that would be better for everybody. And I really felt that way. And I got an A on the paper. So anyway, that stuff wasn't working. So at some point, I started to feel like, well, if I was married like everybody else, then I would feel normal. That would be the answer. And I was dating and everything, and I eventually met someone that I ended up marrying. The marriage didn't work out. The marriage failed for infidelity. That wasn't the answer. Now I was more depressed than I was, and at this point, I was a single mother. So for the first time, suicide was off the table, because even with all the depression and sadness, I would not leave my daughter. I would not leave my daughter the way that I felt I had been left. So I'm just like, I'm going to have to just push through it. So, that's pretty much what I did. I worked and I raised my daughter. And somewhere in there, I started using drugs. Just still searching for an alternative feeling to the way I felt inside. And drugs made me feel different, but what drugs did was get me further into sin, because when I started using drugs, methamphetamine, when I started using that, it took me down a darker path. It took me to a whole different mindset. I was consumed by pride and all about me, which it should have been. It was the most shameful time of my life, but the deception of drugs and altering your personality, it can really make you feel like you're on top of the world and that you have everything under control when you don't. Everything's slipping away. I ended up losing my house. I lost my car. And actually, right before that is when, right after that is when I got convicted one day in my bedroom. God was starting to tug at me. I was starting to look on the internet. I was all into politics and everything, and I would look at videos on YouTube, and political videos. It was the same year that Obama was running for president for the first time in 2007. And so I would be searching all these videos out because I was trying to determine who I was going to vote for, blah, blah, blah. And there was this video that I saw. It was listed under one of the videos that I had been watching, and it had to do with God. It was a song, and it had to do with God, and something strongly inside me said, click on that one. And I was like, no. I actually said no out loud, and it was like, no, go ahead and click on it. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for this. I have to go pick my daughter up from school. Click on it. It won't take that long. And I was so reluctant. It was so weird because it was like I wasn't being forced, but I was. It was kind of like a really strong impression. And I clicked on the video, and it just destroyed me. It destroyed me. That's all I can say. I was so convicted. And it's like I heard the song, and they were singing about how wonderful Jesus was and everything that Jesus did for us. And it was showing the whole world, showing landscapes and oceans and everything, and how he created everything. And it was like it was right directly to me. And I got on my knees. I crawled. I was already on my knees while I was looking at it, but I crawled around to the front of the bed, and I just put my face down. And I just started crying really hard. And I was just overwhelmed by my sin, overwhelmed by all the stuff that I had done that I could clearly see was a direct rebellion against God. And it was just the most amazing moment of my life. And I was sobbing my heart out, and I was begging God to forgive me. Please forgive me. I need you to save me. Save me, Lord. And he did. He saved me in my room. And God can save anybody anywhere. And I went to go pick my daughter up from school, and I was like, I told her something had happened to me, and I didn't know how to explain it, but I told her I was different. And it was from that point on. I didn't have a church, but God started to show me stuff because I was always on YouTube. So it was like he would show me videos. Like I would see a video, oh, that looks interesting. And I would click on it, and it would be somebody preaching, and they would preach what I needed to hear. And I mean, all kinds of stuff started to fall into place and make sense. I started remembering stuff that I had heard or known from when I was a little girl about God. I would have dreams, and it'd be like, you need to teach your daughter about modesty. You need to teach your daughter this and that. The TV, the cable got cut off, and I mean, we were big TV watchers. I would walk in the house, I would go in her room, I'd turn her TV on for her, then I'd go in my room and turn my TV on. That's how bad it was. And so the cable got cut off, and for the first time, my daughter and I we were talking. She would come in my room, Mom, can I read my book in here with you? And she would ask me questions, and I'm like, wow, this is different. Before that, she'd be in one room watching SpongeBob, and I'd be in another room watching something. And then we started going for walks together, looking at the stars, and it was like a whole new level of like just an amazing time. And I didn't know, like God was showing me stuff little by little, and I didn't know, like I hadn't let the drugs go. I hadn't let the alcohol go, but it was kind of like it was pressing on my heart, like, this isn't right. This isn't right. And I was like, well, I would make excuses for it and stuff. I even had a sinner ask me one time, like, don't you think it's kind of hypocritical that you are still doing this? You're still smoking and you are talking about Jesus? And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect. And I would just kind of hide behind that. And I think that's the time when I lost my house. Is like God, it was like enough, because when I lost my house, I didn't have anywhere to go but back home to my mother, and not even knowing my mother was going to die in 7 months. God put me back in South Central LA, in the house I grew up in with my mother. I was able to take care of her, got me away from all the bad influence, the bad people I was hanging out with. That was one reason why it was too easy to not quit, because the people I had surrounded myself with were all drug addicts, and I don't think anybody else was an alcoholic, maybe one other person, but it's like he just picked me up by the scruff of my neck and put me somewhere else. Like, okay, this is enough of this. If you're going to serve me, you're going to serve me fully. And I moved back to my mom's, and after some months being there, and I wanted to quit at this point, but I didn't know how to quit. I was scared. I was really scared to quit the drugs, because I had heard all kinds of things about the side effects, and you're going to sleep for days, and you get really angry. It's really difficult to kick meth. And so one day I was driving home from work, and I was like, Jesus made me. He knows everything about me, and he knows how to make my body. He knows how to heal my body where that I wouldn't want to have meth anymore, and I won't have to suffer with any side effects. So at that moment in my car, I had drugs in my pocket, and I prayed right then and there in the car, and then I threw everything out the window. I threw the whole thing right at that moment, because I knew if I didn't throw it out the window, I would probably talk myself out of it. And from that point on, I was drug free. I never did any kind of step program or whatever drug rehab program, I was free. I got up, I went to work the next day. I got up, I went to work the day after that, and every day after that. I never went through the whole sleeping for days thing. I never went through any kind of physical withdrawals. I was just fine. I was absolutely fine, and I was absolutely healed and free. And I know that if Jesus did it for me, he could do it for anybody. Nobody could tell me anything differently. Nobody could tell me, because I knew I was not anybody special as far as being better than anybody else. Why would God do it for me? It's just, I really and truly believe deep in my heart that he could do it. I have faith that he could do it, and he did. And that was 1 week before someone gave me a flyer for Potter's House LA. And I started going to Potter's House, and I prayed to God and I asked him if that was the right church for me. And I think it was the first time or the second time I went, I prayed that prayer as I was driving to church. And as soon as I prayed that prayer, like 2 hours later, I was getting a word. I didn't understand what that was, and it really scared me. I was crying, and the pastor that had been preaching was talking directly to me, and he was telling me all about myself, what I had been through, and telling me now it was time for a change. And he was right. And I knew God had sent that. I knew he answered my prayer when I asked him to show me where he wanted me to go or what church he wanted me to be at. He had answered my prayer. So I've never left Potter's House. And I think it was about 2 months after that I had been attending that I first realized I hadn't had a drink. I had been drinking for 25 years. I would stop after work and I would get a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne or whatever pretty much every day, you know. And I knew that I was killing myself, but I would do it anyway. Because I think that when you have that death thing or whatever hanging over you, if you're not directly trying to kill yourself, you're indirectly trying to, because that's what drugs and alcohol do. So in a way, I was still trying to commit suicide. And they were starting to tell me things when I went to the doctor, but I didn't know how I was going to quit that, because I was afraid of who I'd be without it. Like, I wouldn't be fun anymore. I wouldn't have the personality anymore. That's just deception. So anyway, I had so much fun my first months at Potter's House LA, and I never noticed that I wasn't drinking anymore. I didn't notice that. It didn't even cross my mind, and that's just amazing to me. So anyway, I'm just telling you that when you have an encounter with Jesus Christ, it's like a Mack truck. It's not that you can have an encounter with him or just say a prayer, say some words like a ritual, and not have it affect you. When you are converted, you're converted. And my life has never been the same. Jesus Christ has changed every aspect of my life. Even the fact that I can sit here and do this, because no way in the world I ever wanted to be in front of anybody. I was so insecure and so afraid. I was afraid of everything because I felt like I had no value. And I know I have value because Jesus died for me. And he would have died just for me. And I know he's here, and I feel him with me. When I pray, he hears me, he answers my prayers. And it's just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like being truly born again. But you have to give it all to him. You have to surrender everything to him. You can't hold back. You can't say, well, I'll just have this little sin over here. Give your life to Jesus Christ and wait and see what he does with your life. Wait and see what your destiny is, because God has a plan for you just like he has a plan for me. Thank you so much.